Hello. Hello, Anthony. Hello, Jinder. Welcome. Hello, Gabriel. It's great to have you joining us today. While we're waiting for a few more people to enter the session today, if you'd like to put in the chat what country you're on, that would be nice. I'm lucky to be sitting on beautiful Wurundjeri country today. It's a lovely day outside. Just give it a few more seconds. I will say today, if you are throughout the session, if there are any questions that you have, we do have our wonderful Vic team behind the scenes, and we will be monitoring the chat throughout the session. So feel free to put any questions that you have in. The chat's disabled. We'll see if we can fix that. Anthony, thank you. All right. All right. Hello, Jeanette. Feel free to put what country you're coming in from in the chat as we begin. I will get started, and hopefully if there are a few more people joining us, they can join in. So I'd like to start today's session by acknowledging that I am coming to you from the lands of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people, who are the traditional owners and knowledge holders for this country. And I would like to pay my respects to their elders, both past and present, whose strength, activism, and continuous connection to culture, law, and language forges the path ahead for our emerging leaders. I would like to extend this respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today, and to all the traditional owners throughout Victoria and across the country. I would also like to recognise that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. All right, so I guess the focus for today's webinar is we are hoping to be able to provide you with some support to start embedding truth-telling and reconciliation in your school or in your early learning centre. So wherever you may be in your reconciliation journey, some of you might be developing your first reconciliation action plan. Some of you may be completely new to this discussion around reconciliation and truth-telling, and wherever you are, it's just great to have you on board today and for you to follow through with that interest as well. So I'll start the presentation by giving you a brief overview of who we are here at RecVic and what we're currently focused on, particularly in the education space. And then we will do a bit of a deep dive into the Reconciliation Australia's Narragunnawali Reconciliation in Education program, and how you can use that platform to start your journey embedding truth-telling in your school or your centre. So just to introduce myself, my name is Claire Hyett and I'm the projects officer here at Reconciliation Victoria. I'm a proud Gunai-Kurnai woman. However, this was a connection that my family only made about 10 years ago. So my ancestors were taken away when they were children and placed on a mission, and that identity was hidden from me and in my family until recently. So I've kind of spent the last few years learning what that means to me and how I connect with that identity. And I think particularly as I learnt a little bit more about Australia's true history and about my own mob, it became really evident to me how little I was taught about that history in school. And I'm sure that's an experience that isn't uncommon amongst all of us here today. So I am particularly passionate about ensuring that our future generations grow up understanding our history and celebrating Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures. With us here today, we are also very fortunate to be joined by Esma Livermore from Reconciliation Australia. So Esma is a proud Kamilaroi Dunghutti woman from Inverell, New South Wales, who joined the Reconciliation Australia team in January 2016. And Esma is the RAPS Community Senior Officer in the Narragunnawali team. Esma has previously worked as an Aboriginal education worker and an Aboriginal Community Liaison Officer for the New South Wales Department of Education. And she has a long history with the local Queanbeyan Aboriginal Education Consultative Group. Currently, Esma is the Deputy Mayor of the Queanbeyan Palerang Regional Council and is a representative on the referendum engagement group for the Voice to Parliament. So we are incredibly fortunate to have Esma here with us today to provide us with some insight into the Narragunnawali Reconciliation in Education program. Thanks for joining us today, Esma.
Thanks. I didn't know if I come off camera there or not. Hi, everyone, and thanks for having me.
All right. Awesome. So thanks, Alex. We might jump to the welcome slide if possible. Sorry, we are a small team and we are learning how to run our webinars by ourselves. So apologies, as Alex works that out. But I thought just to start, and this is something we can do without the slide. So just to start, because like I said, we are at really different stages of our journey. And I just wanted to have a bit of a chat about welcome and acknowledgements of country. And I just thought if you'd like to share in the chat today, whether you know the difference between them, whether you use them regularly, if you regularly conduct acknowledgement of countries in your classroom or your staff meeting or your early learning centre, whether you have organised a welcome to country for your centre or school. If you'd like to share that in the chat, that would be lovely just to see. I know that it is often it's become a more commonplace thing that we do, and that's fantastic. So I just wanted to check where you all were in that stage of your journey. If you'd like to share, you definitely don't have to. All right, well, as you're thinking about that, I suppose we can have a chat about why it's important to conduct acknowledgement of country when a welcome to country isn't possible. So we know that traditionally, when Australia's first peoples gathered to meet, an elder would welcome people to their country. And this is really about asking after that person's intent on the land and asking for their spiritual safety while they're on it. Asking, will they accept the law? Will they respect the land and the resources that are on it? And if yes, then they are welcomed onto that country. However, nowadays, often traditional owners cannot be present to conduct a welcome to country. And it's a sign of respect to deliver that acknowledgement of country. So Anthony, welcomes are only given by traditional owners and acknowledgements can be given by everyone. Yeah, that's exactly right. So it's that sign of respect when that welcome isn't possible. We can all conduct that acknowledgement of country as well. At the school, the classes start with an acknowledgement and sometimes go outside to talk on country. That's awesome. That's amazing, Anthony. It's great to hear that every class starts with an acknowledgement. And I suppose the other thing we can think about if we are responsible for conducting the acknowledgement is how can you then make it really personal and meaningful for you? And the way I see it, writing your own acknowledgement, whether it's for the classroom or your staff meeting or in your early learning centre, it's a really nice opportunity for you to reflect and connect with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures. So, in addition to paying respect to the traditional owners of the land you are on currently, you might also consider what lands you were born on or where you have lived previously, if these are different and you have a strong connection there. You could also consider days of significance for Australia's first peoples and acknowledge these. And I often like to pay my respects to the land as well, because I've grown up and live on Wurundjeri country, and I have a deep care for the land and its resources and the way that it looks after me. So I often like to acknowledge that. But it's really just about making sure you're using your own words and communicating authentically. And that's something that you can, if your students or the children that you care for are responsible for acknowledging that country, then that's a really nice way for them to connect as well. I will just note, if you are worried at all or a bit unsure, the Department of Education and Training do have acknowledgement and welcome to country protocols, which you can have a look at, and I'll show you that link at the end of this presentation today. All right, so moving on to who we are here at RecVic and what we do. So we are the statewide body promoting reconciliation across Victoria, and we are really focused on working in partnership with First Peoples to really support that deeper understanding of culture, respect and justice across the state. So it's our vision to see a Victorian identity that reflects our true history, that values Aboriginal culture and ensures self-determination and equitable outcomes for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. So as I mentioned, we are a very small team of staff, just the 5 of us currently, but we are lucky to be advised by an amazing board, majority of whom are First Peoples. And we are also really fortunate to be guided by an active cultural council, which consists of just some incredibly strong Victorian elders. And we are really grateful for their generosity and time and guidance and support that they provide us. And we really listen and are led by those voices. We also have an amazing team of volunteers, and we really rely on their dedication and time as such a small team with a big workload. All right, now in terms of what we do, you'll see up on the screen, we've got quite a few projects that we're working on this year. Recently, we've just conducted a statewide survey, which was done in partnership with Aboriginal researchers, and this was aimed at getting an understanding of the current views and attitudes towards reconciliation across the state of Victoria. And we will use, I think we've had about 1,300 responses so far, and we will use these responses to inform our future activities in the coming years. We're also looking to increase the profile of Aboriginal gathering places across Victoria. So these are Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community owned and operated spaces. And there are currently 17 of these across the state. So we're going to work with them to promote and build awareness of those around the state as well. We are continuing our work on our Magali website. As you might recognise the symbol up on the screen there, the logo up on the screen. And this is what we use to support local governments and share best practice examples of those councils around the state working with First Peoples. We will also continue working with our local reconciliation groups that operate across Victoria, and you'll see underneath that we'll host our annual regional forum, and this is their chance to celebrate and talk about their activities and projects over the coming year. So that's always a really nice event that we run. We will also continue to support the really important work of treaty advancement in Victoria and the Europe Truth-Telling Commission, sorry. And then up in the right-hand side there, we've also got the Voice to Parliament referendum, and this is a big one for us this year. So this was the first reform called for in the Uluru Statement from the Heart. And excitedly, the Yes campaign actually officially launches tomorrow as part of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Voice Week of Action that we've just had. So that was from the 18th running till Friday, but the Yes campaign launches officially tomorrow. And both Reconciliation Victoria and Reconciliation Australia really strongly support this Yes campaign. So we've got a lot of work to do, encouraging all Australians to also show their support, find out a little bit more, and have those really important conversations with their friends and family. So that's a big one for us as well. In terms of education, we will continue with our monthly or regular education webinars, which is supported by the Department of Education and Training. And this is all about promoting truth-telling about Australian histories in our schools. So those will continue over the year. Excitedly, we are also launching our new membership platform. So for you as educators, this means you will be able to sign up and have access to a specific section of the platform. And that's where we'll be placing the webinars, like I just mentioned, plus some additional resources for your professional learning or for in the classroom. And we're also hoping that this platform will be able to provide a space where educators can connect and really build a network and further conversation, share resources and that sort of thing. So that's something, you'll see that beautiful artwork up on the screen by Wiradjuri artist Graham Gilbert. We're very thankful for him for providing us with that, and that's going to be over the membership platform, so keep an eye out for that as well. All right, another question. I thought I'd just like to ask, as you're starting your journey, I think it's really important to reflect on what reconciliation in education means for you. And it's something that you can continue to reflect on throughout your reconciliation journey. It's just a good way to check in with yourself personally and for your classroom. Why is it important to you? And why is it important to you that you embed truth-telling and reconciliation into your classroom or your early learning centre? So if you'd like to share with us today, you're welcome to put it into the chat. But otherwise, that's just something that you can reflect on personally as you sort of begin this journey, embedding Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives, cultures and histories into your classroom. On that, I suppose it is also important to acknowledge that the term reconciliation can be quite complex and therefore can mean different things to different people. But for us, it's all about talking, walking and working together with Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal Australians to overcome that division and inequality. Anthony, schools have more focused on embedding the Marong plan, so does that fit in with that? Good question, Anthony. I might come back to you on that one. You'll see I'm about to have a chat about the Marong plan on this next slide. So for anyone who doesn't know, as part of the Department of Education's focus on embedding truth-telling about Australians' history in Victorian education, they have released the Marong Aboriginal Education Plan. And that does include reconciliation, definitely, Anthony, if that was your question. It's all combined in one, and it's all important as well. You'll see up the top is the National Reconciliation Week theme for 2023, Be the Voice for Generations. This is a really important theme, and it's going to be great for you as educators to engage with in the coming months. It's all about recognising and highlighting the work of generations and key activists in the past who have fought for justice in Australia. And it's really calling on us today to tackle that unfinished business of reconciliations for our future generations. So as educators, it's going to be great to engage with your students as well. As I mentioned, the Europe Justice Commission and the treaty advancement is all happening here in Victoria, and that's really great to stay on top of, stay engaged with, follow them on your socials or through your emails as well, because there's always things happening in that space. In terms of local governments, you'll also see the Victorian Aboriginal and local government strategy up there, and that's something that for local governments and Aboriginal communities to use in order to strengthen partnerships together and really engage in that shared decision making to support Aboriginal self-determination and reconciliation. So you'll see across all spectrums across the state, all across the state, there's so much happening here in the reconciliation space. All right, thanks, Alex. So we'll now move on to the second half of today's presentation. And we're really proud to recommend that schools and early learning services in our region engage with Reconciliation Australia's National Narragunnawali Reconciliation in Education program. So I'll now pass over to Esma, who's going to continue this conversation and talk you through the platform and the Reconciliation Action Plan program as well. Thanks, Esma.
Thanks, Claire, and thanks so much for running us through what you guys do down there in Rec Victoria. It's really great to be able to come along and share what the Narragunnawali program is and how you can embed Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives within your classroom, but also develop a reconciliation action plan to help you keep track of the things that you're doing, but also it's also a commitment to reconciliation within your educational space. So just a bit about myself. My name's Esma Livermore. I'm a proud Kamilaroi, Big and Bull and Dunghutti woman living and working down here up here because you guys are down from me, from Canberra. in Queanbeyan, but that's Ngunnawal Ngambri country. So that's just a bit about me. I'm the senior RAPS community officer in the Narragunnawali team. And the reason why I love being in that role is because in my, the bit of bio that I got read out, I've worked within the educational systems on the ground with teachers, parents, families, and other students, and also have been working in the Department of Education and Training as that Aboriginal Community Liaison Officer, but also being able to be president of our Aboriginal Education Consultative Group here in Queanbeyan. So it's really exciting to be involved in working with Narragunnawali, because I'm able to bring that community perspective and my being an Aboriginal woman into this space, and being able to give that perspective of what's really needed in these spaces, so that not only can teachers, educators, and schools and early learning services can engage, but also trying to bring an understanding for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander families and community members and organisations along the journey to let them understand what their role is in being in reconciliation action plans and reconciliation in education. What you can see now on the screen is Narragunnawali. Narragunnawali was a word that was gifted to us by the United Ngunnawal Elders Council, and in saying that, I would like to just acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands that we're all zooming in from today, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Also acknowledge other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that may be in the room today, and also acknowledge non-Indigenous people that are in the room also today. Reconciliation is a journey that we must walk together, and we can't do anything if we're not all walking together. So it's really important to acknowledge everyone that's on this journey, because as we always say, reconciliation is everyone's business. And in saying that, Narragunnawali is a word that was gifted to us by the United Ngunnawal Elders Council here in Canberra, and it was the closest word that they could come to get to the meaning of reconciliation. So the word itself means alive, well-being, coming together, and peace. And we also reflect that back to our reconciliation action plans as reconciliation action plans that are alive. They're for the well-being of all students. They're about coming together in peace for everyone, in recognising Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories, cultures, and perspectives, and our contributions to the wider Australia. And if I will go to the next slide. As you may or may not be aware, we do have a regional engagement program within the Narragunnawali team, and that's where we come together here in these type of forums. It's a kind of a partnership between Reconciliation Australia, the Narragunnawali team, and all of the rec mob that you can see up on the screen. So you've got Rec South Australia, Rec WA, Rec Tas, Rec Queensland, Rec New South Wales, and the lovely Reconciliation Victoria team that we're all joining in today. And it's just about sharing and supporting each other in being able to embed reconciliation in the schools and early learning services, and sharing the knowledge that we all have, and being able to help support schools and early learning services in being able to develop a reconciliation action plan. And without these partnerships, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we do. And we're really grateful to be able to have these partnerships with all of our reconciliation friends. I always call them there. If you're part of the Narragunnawali team, we have our Narragunnawali family that's within the team that we have, but then we call everyone else our cousins. So it's always good to be working together with mob to be able to get the better outcomes for being able to embed those Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives respectfully, and building those relationships in the classroom, around the school, and with the community. I'll go to the next slide, and we're going to be just play a bit of a video. So I'll put myself on mute, and once we come back, I'll talk a bit more. I don't think we can hear. I can't hear that. Can others hear?
No, we can't hear that.
We'll just get onto the tech issues, and hopefully if we get them back on. If not, I'll come back in onto the next slide.
Yeah.
We're moving on to the next slide. Always love being on these forums and you're always having some type of technical issue, but I think we're so used to it that it's not even, anything that's crazy at the moment. So when we're talking about Reconciliation Australia, we did a state of a report several years ago, and what had come out of that report was the 5 dimensions, which just really talks about what does reconciliation look like, and what do we need to do to be able to break down those barriers of reconciliation, but acknowledging what's happening. Some of those, the 5 dimensions that we all work with, and the 5 dimensions actually work are an integral part of also the Narragunnawali program and how you're developing those or implementing your actions on the ground in your schools or early learning service. And it's really important to, when you're looking at adding an action to your reconciliation action plan, or you're thinking about what does reconciliation mean to you, it's also about having a look at the 5 dimensions and having a look at these. And we always say there's not one dimension that's stronger than the other. They ought to, for reconciliation to be doing, meaning something, you've got to be doing all of these and acknowledging everything that's within the 5 dimensions. So when we talk about race relations, it's about all Australians understanding, it's about all Australians understand and value Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander and non-Indigenous cultures, rights and experiences, which results in stronger relationships based on trust and respect that are free of racism. We've got that big one that we're always talking about, equality and equity. And sometimes when we're talking about this, we see a lot of people adding in it's about closing the gap. But what does closing the gap mean? And so usually when we see closing the gap, we change it to equality and equity, because it's about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples participating equally in a range of life opportunities. And the unique rights of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples are recognised and upheld. And when we look at that, it's also not about helping Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. It's about just bringing that platform that we're on that equal and equitable baseline that doesn't deter us lagging behind. So just remembering it's not about helping, it's just about supporting us getting up there and providing the space and opportunities to be equal with others, knowing the historical aspect of why it's there. And that's why I'll go into that historical acceptance. Historical acceptance is all Australians understand and accept the wrongs of the past and the impact of these wrongs. And Australia makes amends for wrongs of the past and ensure these wrongs are never repeated. It's really important that when we are talking about that historical acceptance, we also acknowledge the historical role that schools and early learning services, I suppose the education space has had on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. For myself, my parents, we always say, oh, that happened so long ago, we've got to forget it and get over it. But it really wasn't that long ago. My parents, who are still alive, weren't allowed to attend school after the age that they were 14. So for me, when I had to go to school, it was really hard for them to engage with the school because they were kicked out of and had a really bad negative experience. And when we're asking families to come inside the gate, when I go through our Narragunnawali framework, I'll talk about how we need to exit our own gates of the school or early learning service and go out into community, because it's not always about community coming into the school space, and it's about acknowledging that historical history that's gone on and building a bit of a deeper understanding of what that means, not only for yourself, but that for the community that you're trying to work with. Institutional integrities, it's the active support of reconciliation by the nation's political, business and community structures. We're seeing a bit of that at the moment, especially around the treaty talks that are happening down there in Victoria and also throughout Australia, and also the referendum for a voice to Parliament, and being a part of that, because I think that's also important when we're talking about reconciliation action plans. We also talk about current issues that are happening, but within Australia at the moment. So we talk about that historical acceptance, but then we need to also acknowledge what is happening right now. And we don't want to talk about what's happening right now in 10, 20 times 10 and 20 years time, we want to be able to talk and educate people that are in our educational spaces and our communities about what is happening now. So that's really important, to be having those conversations about the past, but also about what's happening right now. That's that active support towards reconciliation. And the voice in the treaty is definitely some of those things that we can be embedding into our schools and early learning services, or talking with our community, or engaging with our community and getting out there. And that, when we're doing all of that, we do then come to that unity, which is an Australian society that values and recognises Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and heritages as a proud part of our shared identity. And that's something that we just need to do. It's something that we need to talk about, and coming together and being proud of it, removing those race negativities that we're always seeing out there, and start talking positive about all of the dimensions that we see in today. But this is integral to our platform and the work that we do. And whenever you're looking at your RAP, always feed back into this and see where does your commitment to reconciliation sit within one of these. And if it does, then you're easily able to move forward and have a deeper understanding of what each step that you're taking towards reconciliation does mean, and if it is meaningful. I'll go to the next slide. So as I was mentioning throughout, how does that all link into the Narragunnawali program? The 5 dimensions are integral to our framework, which you see here on the screen. So when we're talking about embedding reconciliation initiatives into the classroom, we look at these 9 pieces of framework. So we have relationships, respect, and opportunities, and we look at having those relationships in the classroom, around the school, with the community, respect also in the classroom, around the school, with the community, opportunities in the classroom, around the school, and with the community. And sometimes people think, oh, this is going to be too hard, but for most of the time, the actions that we have listed here are a lot of the things that you're already doing in your educational settings as it is. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the classroom, which is around your relationships in the classroom. You might have them already, but if you don't know how they are, these actions will help provide you with the support tools to be able to implement these actions within your classroom, or your educational school, around the school and with the community. At the moment, there's 30 actions that we have on our Narragunnawali platform, but when you're creating and developing a RAP, we only ask for your requirement for any given RAP is to add the 14 required actions, which are all got that little star on the side. And these are, like I said, these are probably actions that you're already doing within your school or early learning service. And also there's your acknowledgement of country and welcome to country. And it's really important. I know that we touched on this a bit earlier, but it is really important that when you are adding deliverables we'll go a bit, I think we're going to go a bit into it later in the slides, but it's really important to, when you're adding those, to really look at what those actions mean, because we still are getting a lot of people getting confused with a welcome to country and an acknowledgement of country within those settings. We're going to move on to the next slide, and this one is, I didn't know if this was going to be a film, but it might not be. If it doesn't play, we'll skip it and move on. I mean, it'll play, but just no sound. I think we can play it, because it's you've got the words that are coming up, so just read through it and then we'll talk a bit more about it. So this is just talking about how you join the Narragunnawali community. It's just about entering your details, join the Narragunnawali program. You'll be sent an email, and then you're able to create or join a RAP. So you'll click onto, it'll probably go there. Slowly, you sign up to a reconciliation action plan, and then you'll be able to select a school or early learning service that you want to enter your code, and then you'll be able to see where it's there. Then you'll be able to add it. You've got to be able to get a RAP working group. You're able to invite new members. You have to complete a reflection survey. and I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. And then you have to write your vision for reconciliation, and if you know an acknowledgement of country, then add all of your required actions or any other actions that you might feel that you need, that you're doing within there. You add the RAP, you sign the RAP action to a person that's in your RAP working group. You set a due date that you might want to, that you think you're going to do it by, the deliverables, and then you submit your RAP. Pretty much that's the process. It sounds easy, quick and fast. Some people can do reconciliation action plans really quickly because they've already got most of the work that they're doing within a reconciliation action plan, and they can easily add it to their as they're doing it. But others can, I've seen, have taken up to 12 months working on their RAP, and then they submit it. So there are some people who will set what they want to do and then do that over 12 months, or some people really start working on their RAP for 12 months before they submit it, so that then they can have all of their plans within what they're ready to go for within the next 12 months. Reconciliation action plans are a 12-month RAP. So what will happen is that every 12 months you'll be asked to refresh your RAP. What this means is that over the 12 months, you've gone on a learning journey. That first time that you enter a reconciliation, that you've developed a reconciliation action plan, you've set some of those goals. You might say that your vision is our vision for reconciliation in our school is to build relationships with the local Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community, and respectfully embed Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives within your school. So when you're getting in there and you're having a look at your actions, you might add your actions to attend, to reach out to the local Lands Council, or reach out to a local Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisation. By the 12 months, you look back and reflect on your RAP and have a look at it. And if there's, you haven't built that relationship with that community, then it's a chance for you to reflect on, am I doing the reconciliation action plan justice? Am I really being meaningful to wanting to build, to acknowledge reconciliation and teach everyone that's attending my educational service reconciliation? It's really important that when we're committing to these actions that we're really doing it, because if we're not doing it, then we don't want it to be just another tick of the box document that we've got and it sits pretty out in the out in the front office of your school or early learning services and just gathering dust. We want you to, a reconciliation action plan is a living, breathing document that has to be continually worked on, and reconciliation isn't achieved within 12 months. It's a continuously ongoing reconciliation journey that we're all going on. We're just going to have a look at the actions at the moment. So as I said earlier, there are 40, I said 30, but there's 40 required actions in total. 14 are which are required to maintain consistency and quality across all your RAPs. You can be on more than one RAP working group also. If you've got, you're working at a school, but you're also got children that attend a high school or a early learning service that also have a RAP, then you're able to join multiple RAPs and be part of that journey all together. So once you click onto that RAP, we'll go to the next slide, action. You'll come into a platform that's this. So when we're signing up to the Narragunnawali platform, it's free. You're able to look at all of the resources that are on there and be able to share them. If you're not on a RAP working group, you can still access all of these and use them as an individual or in your own group settings that you might have set up at school. But when you're talking about the actions, you'll get come to this slide, and it talks about your overview. So it talks about what teaching about reconciliation is. I'll just use what the example is up on the page. It's a bit of a need to know. So what is it that you need to know about this action? Ideas for action, and then it'll give you some ideas for actions. Now, I think when you're developing a RAP and you're selecting this and it's a required action, have a look at those ideas for actions, because what's really good about that tab itself is that it's going to give you some ideas for some deliverables, because we already know what the goal is, and that the goal is to provide your school or early learning service community with opportunities to learn more about Reconciliation Australia. But in the Ideas for Action tab, you'll be able to go in there and it'll give you some ideas, and you can use them as deliverables. So the deliverables are the steps that you are going to take to achieve this action within itself. There's also some professional learning for your teachers and educators, and there's also some curriculum resources that link you to some of those professional standards that you may be looking at. We'll go to the next slide. So as we said, the curriculum resources. So these are early learning primary and secondary curriculum resources. They help you to build practical activities and lessons. They promote reconciliation and develop children's and students' understandings of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories, cultures, and contributions. And as I said, each resource has elements of the early learning framework in the Australian curriculum, and that aligns with the reconciliation action plans. And you can use them to as is, or adapt them to suit your local community and setting. Again, Narragunnawali is the national program, but we really encourage you to work uniquely with your community and the traditional custodians also within your area. The professional learning, so these resources build your awareness and understanding of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories, cultures, and contributions. And each resource aligns with the National Quality Standard, early learning, the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers, primary and second, and at least they're linked to one RAP action that's in there. So it's really good with our resources that if you're within that early learning or you're a teacher that's primary or secondary, we really break it down to being unique for each of those settings to make it easier, because we do understand how time poor teachers and educators are. So we really make it a lot easy for you guys to be able to come in and use those. I'll go to the next slide. So yeah, one of the questions we'll want you to think about is what makes a meaningful RAP? And that's just something for you to probably think about, and I'll probably give you some examples of what makes a meaningful RAP. In being able to do that. It's just, like I said earlier, it's ensuring that this is a living, breathing document that you're always reflecting on. And it's also about building meaningful relationships with your community and acknowledging the traditional custodians and going outside of your school or early learning services out to community and building those relationships. It's about just not saying, committing to we will, it's about doing it and getting out there and making sure that you're bringing everyone within your school and early learning service on the journey, and really valuing it, because what we don't do is that we don't keep you accountable for what you're committing to. I think it's like any relationship. If you commit to something, you commit to it wholeheartedly, and reflecting back on the 5 dimensions and having a look at the real meaning of those and the historical acceptance and equity and equality and all of those. It's really important to be involved in those. And then we'll go to this one. So starting a RAP journey, it's about that vision. What is your vision for reconciliation? Remember that there's a big difference between Aboriginal education and reconciliation in education, and having a look at that. Aboriginal education is about helping and supporting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students within your classroom settings, but reconciliation in education is for all students, all families, and the wider community. It's not about helping Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people find their identity and help them acknowledge who they are. That's not a school or early learning services position to be able to do that. It's up to their family and the individuals themselves. You can provide the support tools and being able to bring people into the classroom to help that. But yeah, creating that vision, being mindful of thinking what they are. If you've got champions that are within your school or early learning service or your community, bringing them along. And again, champions don't just have to be Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. They can be any person from any walk of life that, that are passionate in this space. and just, wanting to champion reconciliation. The governance, having a look at what your structures are within your school or in your educational setting, and really embedding it in that and making that meaningful and going a bit deeper rather than just having flags flown, artwork around the place. It's about having a look at what some of those policies and procedures are within your educational space. Engagement with your community, non-Indigenous, especially, and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, to help support teachers, provide opportunities to be able to learn more about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives. And the investment, we talk about the investments, not by the time you're 12 months into your reconciliation journey, you'll realize that the investment is not a financial investment. You'll get so much more from your Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community when you're building those meaningful relationships. And they go from transactional to transformational, and people will just want to come into your classroom. So yeah, just remember that investment is also not just about how good you look to other people within your community, but the investment will go into what your children and in your school or early learning service will receive, so that they can go on, and in 10 years time we'll be in such a better place than where we are right now. And the questions even around the voice and treaty, they won't even be questions for children. They'll have that understanding of why this is so much important. And even changing the date of Australia Day, conversations like that we have right now, the investment in 5-10 years will pay off, because we'll have children that will be able to speak for us and with us and understand and move that change. And the resources that we have available on the platform are tools that'll help support you in your journey, to help you not say that we're too scared not to not to teach about it, but will help support you in being confident and being able to get out there and just start your journey towards reconciliation. And I hope that, the resources, if you've ever got any feedback, flick us an email, and we're always supportive and willing to have those conversations about what works well and what doesn't work well. This is our Who Has a Rap map. So if you go on our Narragunnawali platform, which is probably, we'll share those resources, I think, with you after. Otherwise, it's just at narragunnawali.org.au. You'll find that Who Has a Rap map. And why this map, I feel, is really important for you as people who are coming along the learn journey, is that you can have a look at it and see who already has a rap within your area that you're from. And you can start building that network of being able to connect with them and talk about what it is that they're doing and how they can share with you or work together. And you just can join and form that network to be able to drive reconciliation within your area. And I think that's me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Esma. I'll just highlight, there was a question in the chat, just checking that students can be part of the working group, and that's absolutely the case, isn't it?
Yeah, you can definitely have students being involved in it. I think it's a great way that we champion others to be involved in it. A lot, we have raps that have been driven by students who have gone on and started joining it, creating their own rap, and then they're able to bring everyone along. So yeah, definitely students can be involved within the rap, or you can have them as a part of the rap network that helps support driving that reconciliation.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
So hopefully you're all feeling quite inspired after that chat to jump on the Narragunnawali platform and have a look. Just before we end the webinar today, I just wanted to highlight a couple of events that are happening this week. First off, you'll see, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the From the Heart campaign for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Voice to Parliament referendum that we know is happening this year, has had a week of action over the past week, and are launching their campaign, their Yes campaign, tomorrow. So both RecVic and Rec Australia will be supporting and behind that. So keep an eye on their website and have a look, because I know they'll be releasing some resources that might be good for you to access and teach with your students as they come into the classroom. And also I'll mention that Reconciliation Victoria's website does have a dedicated page for the Voice to Parliament. So that has a whole suite of resources and further information if you do want to learn a little bit more about that. You'll also see up on the screen, we've got there's a Bundles Nest conference, and this is an annual 2-day event run by Balnarring Preschool. And it's all about learning from and with First Nations people. So it will have speakers, workshops, performances as well. And excitedly, Reconciliation Victoria's co-chair, Uncle Shane Charles, and our treasurer, Bob Williams will be speaking there this year. So that's really exciting as well. So if you're around this weekend, I definitely recommend checking that out. Thanks, Alex. The other one is the Narragunnawali Awards. So the Balnarring Preschool, who I just mentioned, who run that Bundles Nest conference, were actually last year's winners of the Narragunnawali Awards. And this is something that Narragunnawali run to recognise and celebrate Australian schools and early learning services that are implementing outstanding reconciliation initiatives. So nominations are open now, open till May, I believe, as well. So just highlighting that. All right, and just up on the screen now, we have a few resources which I mentioned throughout the chat, and a couple of other key resources that are good to access. I will just point you towards the Koori Education Calendar for 2023. So Victorian Aboriginal Education Association is the peak Koori community organisation for education and training in Victoria. And this is a really key resource for you to access. It's a calendar of all events and dates, significant dates across the year, with a whole heap of resources and information and activities that you can run in your classroom. So, oh yeah, that's awesome. So you probably already, looks like Anthony's already got access to that there, that Vaso has sent that email out. So that's great that you've got that resource with you as well. And yeah, I would also recommend you having a look at the Uluru Statement from the Heart and the From the Heart campaign if you haven't already. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of resources there to have a look at as well. If you do want to take a quick photo of that screen, please feel free. Unfortunately, I can't get the links live on a webinar, so I just thought you might like to take a quick photo of it if you haven't already. All right, awesome. So thank you so much for coming. Please keep in touch with us here. I would highly recommend you also sign up to our e-news. Our comms officer, Poppy, does an amazing job jam-packing that with events, information, resources, and everything under the sun that are focusing on reconciliation across Victoria. So if you want to stay up to date with those sorts of things, please sign up to our e-news. And like I mentioned, our website's down there if you do want to have a look at some more Voice to Parliament resources. Thanks, Alex. Please keep in touch with Narragunnawali as well and their awesome team alongside Esma. So there's a couple of resources up there if, again, you would like to take a quick screenshot or just note those down. I think they can all be found on the Narragunnawali website as well. So narragunnawali.org.au, and you're welcome to go have a look. All right, so thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you got a bit out of it. And we really appreciate you taking your time out of your day. As Esma said, we know that teachers have a lot on their plate, and it's really great that you were able to come along to today's session. And I hope you're able to learn a little bit. As you leave, we will ask you just to complete a quick survey just to provide some feedback on today's session as well. So it'd be great if you could fill that out before you go. All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, and have a lovely evening and afternoon. And thanks to Esma as well for joining us today.